Hey everybody, I'm Rob the Easterling, and some of you have said that I should start off my videos with an intro video, so here we go. Today we're going to be painting Rogue from Marvel United's X-Men version, and we're actually going to be going old school with this one, not using speed paints, not using contrast, not using anything that's going to make it speedy or whatever. We're going to go back to just a basic Army Painter acrylics with a little bit of watered down paints to them, and we're going to see how smoothly you go. We are going to do some shading though and stuff like that, so that's going to happen because sometimes you just need a little shading in your life, right? Anyways, I hope you enjoy these videos. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and let's sit down and enjoy together. And don't forget, spend less time painting and more time gaming. Alright, let's get painting. So we primed Rogue with some brain matter beige from the Army Painter, and we're going to be using actual acrylic paints. We're not going to be using any speed paints today, folks. No, we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to go to some amber skin to do her skin. Now, everything I'm doing here, I'm actually using some of the techniques I've learned over the years where watering down your paints is almost a necessity. So I have my wet palette out, I got my paint on it, and I also wet my brush beforehand, put it in the paint, put it a little bit across the wet palette. Using my wet palette better, I'm still learning so much about painting, it's ridiculous. And as you can see, the amber skin went in really well. Now I'm using some matte white, also watered down a bit. I mean, it's not showing much now because of the brain matter beige, but it is lighter. And then I'm doing her hair with the lava orange. So I will be using a lot of Army Painter products in this video again because I've pretty much stuck with Army Painter. Citadel, I have some shades left, and I will be using some of their shades in this video as well, and a couple other little things, but I usually prefer Army Painter stuff. And if you shade the bottles really well and you do thin them out a bit with a little bit of water, not too much water, just a little bit to create like a glaze as everyone else calls it. I'm not trying to get too technical, but I want to show you that even though this miniature, instead of taking me 10 to 15 minutes, it might have taken me half an hour instead to paint. But still, a half-hour paint job instead of 6 hours, where like you could go through every little detail and highlight every edge and do everything. I find that if you have a nice light under coating, like a nice primer, then if you water down your acrylic paints, you can get a nice effect as well. You can sort of get some highlights in there as well. And you're going to see that I'm not going to shade a whole bunch of stuff, including this moon dust. Because I'm watering it down so much, or not so much, but just enough, it covers very well. I don't even have to do a second coat. A lot of people are like, well, you have to do 2 thin coats. No, it depends on your paint, and it depends on how your style of painting is. You don't want to shellac a whole bunch of paint on your miniature because you're going to lose the details. So you really want to keep those details. You just want to thin down your paints as much as possible. You can use a medium. I just find the medium sometimes make it a little glossy, and it's not always what you want. Some of the paints though from our painter also, as you can see, lava orange is a little bit more glossy than this moon dust. The moon dust is very matte, and it does a great job covering the areas without covering up your details. Again, people and people voted for Rogue, by the way, in my community tab. It looks like X-Men United is being more popular, so I might paint a little bit more of them in the near future, get over those boxes, because I got quite a bit left to do in there as well. And now I'm using some Goblin Green. This needed a good shaking. Like all my acrylic paints, like the basic Army Painter war paints, have been sitting there for a while, so they all need a good shaking. I might have to add some mixing balls to that. I also forgot a whole section with the Goblin Green. I'm going to come back right after the combat fatigues that I'm doing on her coat. Again, you can see that I've lightened this down a bit, that you can see that the brain matter beige is still kind of coming through in certain areas. Not like super bright, but just at the edges where there's like bumps and stuff like that will be a little lighter than the other paint, and it'll be easier to shade, and it'll create those nice shading effects, and as well as light and dark. So again, you don't always have to use speed paints or contrast paints or dipping inks or whatever other speed painting techniques are out there. As you can see, I'm coming back to the Goblin Green here just to do her pants. I completely forgot to do the rest of her outfit in this color because on the artwork, her bandana matches her outfit, so I forgot to do that. So I came back to it. Not a big deal. Again, this one, as you can see, now that it's on a bit of a flatter surface, you can tell that it's a little weak in the coverage. You could put a second coat on if you want, but I just try and glaze it as nice as possible, and when I put the shader on later on, it will do a better job. Now I'm using some pure red now just for all the X-Men symbols, the logos there, but I mean, I make a little mess at one spot there, but you can always come back. This is another good thing about the acrylic paints. You can come back. Oh no, I'm going to be doing her eyes. Wow. Yeah, see, a little covering up here on the X-Men logo. Again, coming back. So if you're using acrylic paints and you make a mistake, you hit an area that has some paint on already, you can go back to that color, just cover it up, clean it up. When you're using speed paints or anything else where you have a base tone and you're just covering it up, it's a little bit harder to come back and clean up your messes, because then you have to put the base tone back on, let it dry, and then go and cover it again with the speed paint, and sometimes it just doesn't give you the same effect as you had originally. So there's some pros and cons to just plain old base coating, highlighting, and stuff like that, and getting to use some of the old metallics as well, like Elven Armor here, which I did not realize until starting to paint this, that this is a sentinel hand that's coming out of the ground. I'm assuming she destroyed part of a sentinel, and this thing was gripping onto her or whatever. You know, Rogue, she loves those sentinels. And you can, so I was like, oh, these are rocks, and I kept looking at it. I'm like, wait, this is a sentinel hand, so this is pretty cool. And so I ended up looking online. I was like, I forgot the colors of the sentinels. So they're mostly purple and dark blue. Their hands are blue, so I went with this blue metallic. But as you can see, the metallic paints, when they're being used as is, they are pretty thick. So they go on, they cover nice and well though, but they don't leave much for like shades and that. So you will have to put a bit of a shader on it and clean that up a bit. And I'm using some weapon bronze here for the rest of the hand of the sentinel here. And then I'm using some shade from Citadel, some Fuegan Orange. I call it Fuegan Orange. And this is going to go on top of that lava orange. And as you can see, it's not doing a super ton of shading, but at least it darkens some of the recesses for the later job I'm going to use or do. Military shader now, I'm going to put on all the green areas. Look at what it's doing to the coat. I love the military shader, by the way. It's got a hint of dark tone to it, plus some green. So it does a good job shading and whatever you need it to do, like on top of greens anyways. Really good. Now to really make that hand pop here, I'm using some Drakenhof Nightshade. That gets really well into the nooks and crannies. Then I'm using some Agrax Earthshade on the entirety of the rest of the base, and I'm really just dumping it on there to really get those recesses nice and dark, and it dries nice and dark as well. You can see it makes a very earthy tone. And then now I'm starting with the highlights, okay? I don't often do this, I know, and I used to not do this in the past, but you know, she had light in her hair, a little bit lighter orange, so I went with the Fire Lizard. It's got a bit of a yellow tint to it, and just getting the raised edges of her hair to really just make it pop, and having that shade in the recesses makes it darker in there, but then it keeps also that lava orange in a pretty nice state as well. And then I'm just going to finish off the miniature here with a little dabbing of the Runefang steel from Citadel as well, to make those hands look like where they chipped after a big battle. Anyways, there you have it, folks. Rogue from X-Men's Marvel United is painted and ready for the table. I hope you're enjoying these old school style videos again, going back to the basics. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for voting on these miniatures. Hit that like button, and we'll see you all in the next one.